This is part 2 of the 10/6 lesson. And so part 1 was the measure of the arc. Part 2 is the length of the arc. So remember, for arcs, measure and length are not the same thing. Okay? So this will seem kind of like deja vu because it's a whole lot like finding the area of a sector. So just let me remind you of that. So in the area chapter, in chapter 10, now I know this is in chapter 10 that we're kind of going back to visit, we found the area of a sector. And the way we did that is a 3-step process. We found the area of the whole circle. This is just a little reminder, area of the entire circle, right? And then we would find out what fraction of the circle or what part of the circle this slice is, and that depends on the angle measure. So let's say the angle's 80 degrees. I don't know if you can see that. That's 80 3/60ths of the circle, and you can reduce that or leave it unreduced. It'll work either way. Most of you, I noticed, reduced it, so 2/9. And then our final step is we would find 2/9 of that area, and of means to multiply, so we would multiply 2/9 times, in this case 2/9. It's whatever the fraction is, the measure is over 360, times that area, and that would give us the area of that slice. So it's a 3-step process. We would find the area of the entire circle. We'd find out what fraction it is, so measure over 360, and then we would multiply that fraction times the area. Well, the arc length is the exact same thing, but with circumference instead of area. So if I want to know how long that is, then I do a 3-step process. I find the length around the entire circle, which is called circumference. So circumference equals pi times d. Find the length around the whole circle, and then you find out what fraction of the circle that arc is, and let's say that's 80, so it'd be the same thing as that previous one I did. You could leave it unreduced or you could reduce it, and then you just do step 3. You find that fraction of that whole circumference, and that tells you how long that arc would be. So it's the same 3 steps. The only difference is it's with circumference instead of area. That is how to do arc length. All right. So now we're going to find the length of arc AB. Now remember, I was telling you that's kind of pointy looking on this worksheet, but it's really curvy, like an umbrella. I just didn't have that symbol to choose. So all of these that look a little pointy, they're supposed to be more curved instead of pointy, curved. All right, so I want the length of this. So first thing I do is find the length around the whole circle. So I'm doing that 3-step process. First thing I do is find circumference. Circumference is pi times d. You can also use 2 times pi times radius. Same thing. So pi times diameter. They gave me radius 6. The whole diameter would be 12. So 12 pi is the circumference. Circumference is regular inches. And then I'm going to find out what fraction of the circle this is. So to find, some of you will just know by looking that this is 1/4 of the circle. But if you didn't notice that, that's okay. That measure is 90. The measure of the arc is 90. Not the length of it, but the measure of it. So you take that measure and put it over 360. It's 90 3/60ths of the circle. Now, most people prefer that reduced because people don't like to say 90 3/60ths. So that reduces to 1/4. That's 1/4 of the circle. So then the last thing is you just find 1/4 of the whole circumference. So 1/4 of the circumference. And that is 3 pi. So 3 pi inches. Now, that answer is an exact answer, and it's a perfectly fine answer. People don't like it, though, because it's not like you pick up a ruler and measure 3 pi inches on a ruler. So that's why a lot of people like to punch 3 pi into the calculator and round that to about 9.4. So this is roughly 9.4 inches. Both of these answers are fine. It just all depends on what form the question asks you to put it in. So that probably should have seemed real familiar to you. The three-step process for finding the area of this sector is much like the three-step process for finding the length of this arc. It's a circumference concept instead of an area concept. All right, so this would be a good place to pause the video and try this problem on your own, and then press play. So I'm gonna find the circumference first. So when you find the circumference, that's the whole way around the circle. So pi times, here the radius is 15, so the diameter would be 30, pi times 30. So 30 pi is the entire circumference. 30 pi meters. And then I have to find out what part of the circle arc DE is. So here's arc DE. This is what I want to know the length of. Now, if they ask me the measure of that arc, it's a much easier answer. The answer is just 60. So measure and angle, same thing. But the length of it, we have to do this three-step process. So it's 63/60ths of the circle. Again, you can leave that unreduced if you want to, or you can reduce it to 1/6. That's a sixth of the circle. So then you find that fraction of that circumference, 1/6 of 30 pi gives you 5 pi meters. Or 5 pi is 15.7. So it's about 15.7 meters. Let me show you that it's the same thing if you leave it unreduced. So 1/6 times 30, right? It was 30 pi, is 5. And 63/60ths of 30, same thing, 5 pi. So you can reduce the fraction and you'll get 5 pi, or you could leave it unreduced and you still get 5 pi. All right, this one, they want the length of a major arc. So here's the major arc. Starts at A, passes through D, ends at B. So it's this one. All right, you have two options. You can find the length of the minor one and subtract it from the circumference, and that would give you the rest. Or you can go ahead and just find the length of this arc using its angle measure, okay? So here's what I mean. I'll show you both ways to do this. So if this is 100 degrees, this arc, remember that's measure, not length. If that's 100 degrees, this is the rest of the circle, which is 260. So if I want to find the length of that arc, it's 263/60ths of the circle. All right, so now I'm going to do the three-step process. Find the circumference. Pi times D. Pi times 10. See, 5 is the radius, so the whole diameter would be 10. That's 10 pi inches. That's the whole circumference. And the major arc is not 100 degrees. The major arc is 260. So that is 263/60ths of the circle. You can leave it unreduced, or 2 goes in there 13, 2 goes in there 18. 13/18ths of the circle. And then you find 13/18ths of the entire circumference. This is gonna come out ugly because you're dividing 10 by 18, so that is gross. 13/18ths of 10. So 7 2/9 pi. 7 2/9 pi, or multiply that by pi. 22.7 roughly. 22.7 inches. Okay, so you find the whole circumference, the fraction of the circle, the part of the circle that arc is, and then you find that fraction of the circumference. That's one way to do it. Now, another way to do it is to find the length of this arc and then take it from the whole circumference. So I'll show you what I mean. This is just a second method. So method 1, method 2. So find the whole circumference, which we already did just a minute ago, pi d. We found it to be 10 pi. So you still need that circumference. And then the minor arc is 100 3/60ths, which reduces to 5/18. And when you find 5/18 of 10 pi, 5/18 of 10 pi, you get 2 7/9. Now remember, this is the minor one because we used the 100 degree. That's this length. And then if you take the whole circumference and take away the minor one, so the major one is the whole circumference minus the minor length. So whole circumference, 10 pi, minus the minor arc's length, 2 7/9. You get 7 2/9 pi. 7 2/9 pi, which is that same answer. So it is completely up to you which method you like. Either you're going to have to subtract the 100 from 360 to get this arc measure, or you're going to have to subtract the arc length from the whole circumference to get the length of this major arc. I think I like this one better. I like to just right away find the arc I'm looking for. So instead of finding this 100 one, the smaller one, I like to go ahead and find this one. So that is up to you though. All right, so that is all to arc length. 3 steps: find the circumference, find what fraction it is, and then multiply that fraction of the circumference. All right, so we are done with arc measure and length, and then we'll get into chapter 12. All right, y'all have a great day.